Oh no, it messed up. 1 second, everybody. I am so sorry. Technical difficulties while I click show no
Hey,
video.
Twitch.
What's up?
What's up? You guys
Yes,
are.
we are on Twitch.
We actually prefer our Twitch viewers as a thing, so you guys get extra content in between streams. Hey, I didn't mean what I just said, YouTube. If you heard what I was saying about Twitch,
We love
I was
you,
lying.
YouTube.
It was all a big
YouTube,
deception.
you're our favorite. So
Hey, TikTok.
TikTok, we actually aren't streaming on TikTok today.
Oh,
But
fuck
maybe next
those
time.
guys.
Yeah, fuck TikTok. Our biggest audience.
Get out of here.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to DM Writer's Room. We're back in Limbo, baby. That's not technically true. We're back in a region that is being partially transformed into Limbo, the plane of dread, or of chaos. I almost said demi-plane of dread, plane of chaos. We are, this is session 2 of us getting deep into a character-driven, Curse of Strahd-esque adventure module. We're writing it, we're building it, and you're going to watch us every step of the way. Whether it's good, bad, indifferent, awkward, who cares? That's the truth of DMing, and that's the entire point of this stream.
Woo.
Ethan,
Embrace
if you
it.
want... Yeah, embrace it, exactly. Ethan, if you want to break us down on what we did last week, that'd be great.
Yeah, so as usual, when we start new series, last week was, I would say, a little hectic. We got there, we repeated ourselves, we got a little cyclical, but that is all good and all well. That is what the world-building process looks like. What we settled on in the end was there is a wild magic sorcerer who was a former hero who has turned heel. They have become a villain. Basically, we viewed this character, as the more we talked, as like the really classic 80s trope of the spellcaster who wants unlimited power, right? They adventure alongside our good guy characters, mostly just because the good guy characters are heading in a direction that will also provide this person with what they need to continue to grow and expand their strength. After defeating whatever terrible thing it is that they fought, this wild magic sorcerer discovered, was sent to, in some way interacted with the plane of Limbo, the plane of pure chaos, and discovered that if they can harness that energy, power unending will be theirs. And so naturally, they decided to do the next logical thing and tear a hole in the universe into Limbo. You know, we've all been there. We've used our other ideas and turned them into sort of lieutenant-type characters. So we have a straight-up-and-down fighter, and we have a blue dragon, both of whom will sort of get a hand on the ball at some point as a lieutenant of some sort or other. We're planning to go from level 3 to level 11, finishing off at a level up to 12 with the Death of the Wizard, which is an incredibly long campaign book. So this is going to be a real Herculean task that we taketh upon our shoulders. I guess Atlas-style task, then. We discussed a little bit of how this villain works. We're probably going to do a little bit more of that work today. And we sort of talked about how we want to visit 5 locations. We know that the last location is called Bedlam, but we do not know the name of the other 4 locales. And so we prepared some names, prepared some things we do and do not like about pre-written adventures. And our goal for the rest of this session is to take those things, name those places, flush out the big picture stuff, right? What is the bad guy like? What makes these 3 locations interesting? What makes the home location interesting? And moving forward, we want to keep our pros and cons in mind so that we don't make adventures with the same problems as every other adventure out there. That's the gist of it. A little wordy, but we got there. I don't know if we're going to stop for bits today. I guess we'll have to see what the vibe is. We have a pretty short run today. This whole week's going to be pretty hectic.
Yes, one was getting married.
But you'll never guess who.
And you'll never know.
You're not telling you.
Yeah, no. We don't vibe with parasocial relationships.
No, no parasocial.
You don't deserve to know. All right, let's move on. So we're all going to start either with our pros and cons or with our location names. Did we have a preference?
Yeah, I think start with pros and cons.
Great.
I think we should get that in first.
Super cool. Okay.
I'll do my con first. Presuming how the scenario will go.
Oof.
Just set the scene and list the loot. I don't need the oh, and they're going to go here and talk to this man. No, they're not. They're not going to do that. And it's a waste of effort on their part, and it's a waste of mental space for me to keep track of whatever nonsense they put in. You have no idea what the players are going to do. You set the scene, you give the loot. That's it.
It's them pre-writing the easiest part of D&D, which is just responding to the dumb things the player does.
Yeah, exactly.
And now you're pro, or do you want to do all cons?
My pro. This is actually kind of similar to what you were just saying. What I like about campaign books is that they take the busy work out of prep. Towns are created, plot hooks exist, loot is drawn up, major plot points are pre-made, monsters are pre-built. All that shit that is time-consuming and a drain on a DM is done for you. So you can then improv and play with your players and make a story with them. That's what I like about campaign books. I never use them one-to-one. I don't just follow a module. I use it to get rid of all the busy work for me. So that's what I like about campaign books. That's what makes them good.
Nice. Okay. I will go with my pro and my con. My con is a scene that they are addicted to, and I don't understand why, which is the need to have something happen where the villain lets the party go because they're like beneath their notice. Bothers the shit out of me, especially because it's so close to the lateral move of you watch the powerful villain attack a powerful person somewhere else. Like, you see that and you go,
oof.
It's a thing we've all fallen into. I've done it in both of my campaigns. I've run Curse of Strahd. It happened in Curse of Strahd. I've run Theros. It definitely happened in Theros. I had big bad villains show up and then leave. I don't always have the free time that I need to prep like the good version of that, what I think is the good version, which is what frustrates me so much about a pre-written adventure not taking the time to sort of line that up in a way that I think behooves player action. My favorite example of the good version of this is in Critical Role for Campaign 2. We watched the villains for Campaign 2, or some of the biggest villains from Campaign 2, blow up a tower. I don't need to know anything about that. Like, we don't need them to be like, and you specifically. Like, we're like, oh, they blew up a tower. Holy shit. Like, that's crazy. That's all we need. Like, there's not, I thought that was very, so yes, that is my con and my attached thought about it. My pro.
An irrelevant note, I just started watching Campaign 2 of Critical Role yesterday. Very good timing.
Yeah. That's funny. I've been trying to catch up really hard on Campaign 3. If for any of those anyone out there who's thinking about doing that, if you're listening on YouTube, double speed. It's good. It's like quick. It's not that bad. I was expecting it to be worse than it was, but it's been to the point now where when I watch them normal, I'm like,
pick it up.
What's happening? My pro, very much in line with taking out the busy work, is interesting, fully developed locations are always the best part of adventure books for me, because even if I don't want to run the adventure, I have a building, I have a map, I have loot, I have monsters, I know what the building's for, I know what it does. Like, that's all amazing. Being able to just pick that up and drop it somewhere else is super cool, and is one of my favorite things that they do. And I've done it before. I've often with dungeons, I've had a lot of players unknowingly go through, not like the Tomb of Horrors, but sort of unknowingly play through bits and pieces out of some other adventures which are ignored because of some of their lackluster details, but that did have really good dungeon design. There's a lot. I'm trying to think of there's a couple of really good ones in like Princes of the Apocalypse and Out of the Abyss. Two pretty maligned adventures for their plot, but both of which have pretty strong dungeons in them. So really good flushed out locations to me are like one of the best things that they offer.
All right, and then town names.
Hey, you scared me.
Michael, we already went over the fact Michael has never read a campaign book. He doesn't get to have a vote on what's good or bad in campaign books.
Hans, the use of AI art. Boo.
Yeah, I mean, hey, that is pretty good. That's a good one. All right, town names.
Pretty good art. I like the pictures.
User-created art. Let's go 1-to-1. I'll do one. Ethan, you'll do one. Michael, I told you to prep them. Mm-hmm. Did you write them down?
I didn't have anything to write down with.
You have a
besides-
computer, Google Docs.
I could
Dang.
have done that.
Got you there.
All
But
right.
let's begin.
Will 1-to-1. My first one, Willowbrook.
Ooh, Willowbrook. My first one, Kelleran.
Ooh. Michael.
My first one, Crimstein.
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 I kind of like the Frankenstein's monster thing going on there.
It's all red.
Spencer, what was yours one more time? I'm trying to write them all down so that we have them in the notes.
Willowbrook.
Willowbrook, good stuff. All right, and now pop off with your second one.
Lancer's Point.
Ooh.
Yeah, yes, sir.
My second one is Orlakath.
It's nice.
Now
Michael.
I think of the second one really quick.
You didn't even think I did it.
No, I was stuck on the first one because I really like the first one.
Before
Oh.
we got onto this call, Michael was like, "No, I've been thinking of them. I got them in my head."
Yeah, then they're gone.
That's why you
Oh,
write them down.
Absolutely.
Yes. Hey, this is working on like. Hey, what's this for the DMs out there? Think fast.
That's what fantasy name generator's for.
Yeah, true. We have Lyanthropo or nope, that's a thing.
Buddy, I'm gonna say I think me and Spencer are gonna say our third ones, and we're gonna come back around to Michael.
Cool.
That's fair. All right. Number 3, Crystalwood. And I think that's what we named one of our adventure towns, but I'm not positive.
No, one of our adventures takes place in the Gemwood. Is the forest.
The Gemwood, yeah, this is Crystalwood.
The adventure that I'm writing, I'm getting the chalk on right now is in. Mine is Ember's Way.
Ooh, nice.
All right, Michael, you had a good 15
10 seconds.
All right. Yes. We have Knightsbrook.
Knightsbrook, all right.
Knightsbrook,
I
okay.
like the idea of Willowbrook and Knightsbrook being in the same area and being just fucking full-on enemies.
Michael, do you feel like coming up with a third one, or have you
Yeah.
feel like you've pitched your?
Let's. I can think of a name.
I was gonna say I do like Lion. I think if you can keep Lion in there somewhere, I do think it's pretty sick.
We have.
I do have a fourth one to buy you a few extra seconds.
Perfect.
I
Thank
had an
you.
extra one. Last one is High Shield.
Ooh. Pretty good. All right, Michael.
We got Bloodmane's Grove.
Bloodmane's Grove. Ooh, very druidic.
Bloodmane's Grove. I like how I've noticed a trend, and this is definitely true of our individual DMing too. I tend to give a town a name that they have given the town, and Spencer tends to really do geographic feature, name of person, geographic feature job.
Yes, absolutely.
Definitely too. It's interesting. It's very like. It's interesting. I like it in this instance because it creates a split. Because pretty universally, what those are is like, if you initially settle a location, you name it some shit like Lancer's Point because you're naming it for something that has occurred there. And then later, when you create a location, when you're like, I'm going to build a city here, you name it some shit like Crimstein or Kelleran because you have a council that gets together and names the city. I think is very funny that we sort of take the opposite approaches. All right, so we've got a long list of location names. We've got some pros and some cons that we can work around, and our pros and cons, thankfully, synergize very well.
Yeah, very
so we
similar.
Don't need to spend too much time sort of pondering the orb on that one. So, moving on to what we want to focus on today, what we think is the real meat and potatoes. Do we want to start by working on these locations, or do we want to start by working on our sort of villainous syndicate? Like, what are they? What's their vibe? How do they function?
I gotta vote Villainous Syndicate. From the jump, I wanted this to be a very character-driven, villain-oriented story. So I think villains first, and then place them around the region.
Okay.
So I think most centrally, we can save this for later, or we can do this now. I don't have a definitive bad guy name yet. We can start to maybe kick that ball around in our heads. Number one is, let's start with our most important thing. Do we want the name to sound like a bad guy name?
That's rough. That is rough because
there's two camps here.
He
There's pick a normal name, and then there's pick a villain name. Strahd, the Storm King. Like, these things sort of... You're like, oh, it's the Vecna. Like, these are bad guy names. These are names for bad guy. Nesna, the Black Spider. These are bad guy names. As opposed to coming up with a normal name that's not too non-dramatic, but that's what fantasy buys us.
He was a hero first, so I think that it would be a heroic name.
I could see it being a heroic name with a villainous title.
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
like...
Well, he'll have inherited a villainous title by the time that we meet him. Remember, one of the things that we do is we begin in a town that is being seemingly sort of taken over, occupied, essentially, by his interest. So let's start with, okay, so we want a name, we want some sorcery shit, and we want some fantasy
Gregorius.
stuff. Yeah, like, I'm going to... So we've got two options here. We can sort of lean into the sort of Europe town that is fantasy world, in which we're in this sort of, like, Gregorius place, or we can try to kick the ball into, like, a little bit more fantasy over, like, action fantasy, which is where you get your, like, I don't know, I'm thinking of, you know, your Gandalf and your Radagasts, where you get your real, like... Crunchy, not
name.
real names, like names that don't have anything to do with the way that the English language creates names, if that makes any sense for the three listeners who will be like,
yeah,
it's us. We're the three listeners that go, yeah, I get that.
well, because like I'm thinking of villainous sorcerer names, and I'm quickly moving through this like Tolkien fantasy, like Jagrion, Vorlagast, like Karlanan, like Arlagath, like Thorlagan, like these elven thuz and guz and vuz. It's these guttural sounds that people associate with that, that tend to associate with that sort of thing in that kind of angle here. So do we want to try to capture character with the name, or do we just want the name to sort of exist separate? Like his parents didn't know he was going to be a villainous sorcerer, or is his name, you know, Shiraxes, you know?
I think the name should exist separate, and it needs to roll off the tongue pretty. Because these people are going to be dealing with this son of a bitch for years of their human lives. So it's got to be quick.
Super
first
important.
name. Oh,
super important second question. Do we want this to be a reference? Names in fantasy adventures often are. We have an evil conquesting character, so quickly you sort of lean to, like, you know, Ramulon.
Alexander.
You sort of lean, yeah, you kind of lean in this direction if you want to carry any of that with it. If you don't at all, I think I'm shifting again towards these, like, R's and M's, these, like, I don't know, Malthael kind of area. Maybe a little too screwy.
Two ideas. If we want, Spencer liked the idea of Alexander. If we want to make it a little more magic-y, Alexia. Or the first thing that I thought of was Quetzal.
Ooh, Quetzal's. Here's the issue with Quetzal.
Yeah.
That is pulling from a real society in America, not America, in the Americas, yeah. An indigenous society.
Is.
So we can't do that one as being who we are.
So we can do the classic fantasy, and we can just drop some letters, and Alexander can become Althander, or we can try to fold the two in, and we can try to hit this, like...
I think
Alexel.
Althander hits. Yeah. I've got Althander. I wrote down two extra ones. One that I'm leaning to more is Rylus. I think that's a pretty heroic name. Why
does that name sound familiar to me?
I don't know. Let me Google it to make sure it's not a reference to something.
Who can say?
It just sounds familiar.
Warhammer 40K.
Okay.
Rylus Darkscourge.
I think we're good then.
Zach plays that. He plays Rylus.
And I don't. So Rylus is just kind of a sick name.
So is their name Althander Rylus or Rylus Althander?
Althander Rylus hits.
Althander Rylus.
Dreadlord Rylus.
Althander Rylus. And then they were probably known as, some, like, if they had a surname at the time of their hero where it could have been, like, it would have either been connected to something, like Rylus, some spell that they favored, something that they did, like, I don't know, I'm thinking
Thunderstep Rylus.
Yeah, Thunderstep Rylus, Rylus the Many-Eyed, Rylus of the Keeper's Flame, Rylus of the Mountain's Top. Just fantasy thing.
Yeah.
Was he? I'm trying to think back. Was he already a Chaos Mage, and he got more Chaos?
He was always a Chaos, a Wild Magic sorcerer.
Okay.
And he just went more into it. Right?
We played with
Am
the
I wrong?
idea of him having been a wizard. And shifted away from it as we continued because we thought it made his backstory a little too complex. So,
Yeah.
Althander Rylus, Althander the Bleak, Rylus the Many-Colored. I don't know. What did they fight? What did they kill? What did they do? Because we know Rylus was always kind of a shithead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So whatever they fought, Rylus thought he had something to get out of it.
What were the monsters that we said were in Limbo? There was like a big bad. It wasn't like the frog.
It is what happens if a slot ages long enough. Eventually they become far more dangerous and powerful. There was a specific one that we named. I can no longer open another tab. I'm down to one monitor right now.
Fair.
So
fair.
I cannot pull up and quickly Google in the side tab. So one of you has inherited that job. Congratulations. There was a specific slot that was sort of worshipped as a semi-deity that we had made reference to as an inspiration, like a jump-off point for something that he fought. More likely, it could have simply been something that had vested interest in getting to Limbo. So pretty much any plane-hopping villain is solid. There are a lot of, villainous groups that have good reason to want to go to a very dangerous place. My mind goes to the Zentarum that are always seeking treasure. It goes to devils and demons that are always looking for the upper hand. It goes to... if we wanted the person they killed to have been kind of good, it goes to misguided people who have lost a companion in Limbo and seek a passage there. That's a series of things. A trope that I always enjoy is consequences unrelated for somebody trying to do a spell that they did not have the power to do. I always think is pretty fun. Somebody tries to summon Orcus, it doesn't work, they summon Lord Soth. Somebody tries to make themselves immortal, it doesn't work, they become a vampire. Any long-term viewer with a keen eye will notice, and I have noticed as I've been returning to these things, that I turn to this trope a lot. One of our adventures we came up with is a fallen angel who is trying to revive their dead god and will fail and create this, mindless necromancy god. There's something compelling to me about, you fool, you should never have even begun your quest, is one that I always enjoy. But not related to this. So, were they killing a big bad evil slad that had leaked through into our world in some Icarus pool?
Yeah, I think that's
right.
the easiest, because then it gives us that location as well as like the prime locale of Limbo on this plane that they've been expanding at.
Great. So that means this band of heroes were not justice seekers or kingslayers, right? They are monster slayers. They go out, they kill the bad guy, they keep them from destroying things. So Rylus the Slayer, Althander of the Grey Hunt, Rylus of the, I'm just sort of
Here's what I've got. I pulled up the sorcerer spell list just for fun. And so it's Althander Rylus, the Sunburst. And the idea is the Sunburst that he did probably to kill this big old slod also killed the party members because we don't want those people in this game. So it's sort of an insult to call him the Sunburst because he burst all of his party members to do this.
Okay.
So that's the in-joke.
All right, I'm sold. Althander Rylus, the Sunburst. What title has Rylus taken up for himself, or has he taken a sort of begrudging choice to remain the Sunburst?
It's interesting. I had two ideas. The Pandemonious or the Void.
I like the idea of Pandemonius. I don't think that he would call him. That's like a title. It's not something he calls himself. That's like I guess, yeah, like the High Lord or whatever.
We can also return to that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have Althander Rylus the Sunburst. This is the name of our sorcerer who, in a stroke of genius, slew a mighty slod that was approaching demigodhood, and in so doing killed his entire party and took something from this slod and used it in an effort to rip a hole into Limbo. I think what that is relatively obvious for those of you who are aware of the material components in Dungeons & Dragons. It was a small tuning fork made out of material from Limbo, because that is the material component to cast Plane Shift, which a high-level sorcerer would have access to, and would certainly give them what they needed to keep jumping back and forth between the planes, right? Althander, it's not that hard to get to other planes in D&D. It's not easy, but it's not that hard, especially for a high-level adventurer. So the story cannot be that Althander wants to get to Limbo. That is not that hard to do. The story needs to be that Althander is powerful in Limbo and wants that power to follow him home.
Yeah, he's trying to merge this area to get that Limbo strength.
So we've got this tuning fork. I like that because my mind is quickly going to the big machine that Althander has built with the tuning fork in it somewhere, and that's just powerful stuff. Althander Rylus he kills his party, he becomes incredibly famous, and he begins to aggregate power. Somewhere along the way, a powerful fighter and a blue dragon, and we are setting this in like D&D, correct? We aren't keeping this legally distinct.
It's not the Forgotten Realm, but it's not the Forgotten Realm.
So we
got to be very
so
clear
legally
on
distinct.
Yeah, legally distinct. We can't reference like the Sword Coast. This is probably to the east of the Sword Coast, but we're not going to say that out loud.
Well, because my point was, if we're doing like DM's Guild, we can sort of gesture towards Neverwinter, can't we?
Yeah, we're not going to do DM's Guild, but
okay.
Yes, we could have it had we.
There we go. So then Althander Rylus went to a legally distinct chaos plane where he fought a powerful creature born of chaos, which is not a slod, but is a sort of chaos
frogman chaos
being. Beast. We'll probably even change it from a frog.
Lizard man.
I have to be honest, I didn't understand that from our last session, so I regret to inform the audience that means we could. It's like, do we want to just come up with a bad guy he fought? It doesn't need to be a slod then. There's no reason for it to be a slod. So Althander Rylus broke into the chaos plane, and Plane Shift is in the OGL, so he did need to get a tuning fork made out of material from the Chaos Plane. So I'm going to write the Chaos Plane.
Yes, the Plane of Chaos.
And then he fought a big, terrible creature, which does not need to have been a weird frog guy from Greyhawk or whatever.
Now, here's where we could pull in Pandemonium. He fought a being named Pandemonium.
See,
that was attempting to rip in.
Okay, a being named, or, well, let's do Scion of a being named Pandemonium.
Yeah, sure, that works.
So
the fragment of Pandemonium, that sounds cool.
I'm just gonna whole cloth here. Let's give this dude the bad guy, the like typical. Let's say they fought treatment. Vendel Ariacus, Scion of Pandemonium.
Let's go.
See, that's the good thing about high fantasy, is you can just sort of
say it.
You just know. It's in you. Vendel Ariacus, Scion of Pandemonium, sought to summon their lord, Pandemonium, a being of pure chaos, into the world. They stopped them, and for the first time, Althander Rylus felt the touch of the far realms, and felt the power that awaited them there, and maybe purposefully wiped out the room with whatever it is that they cast, so that they could have access to the research and notes there. Because what they discovered was that they wanted to stop Vendel Ariacus, because they wanted the power that Vendel was attempting to take for themselves. Great stuff. They make two allies. a blue dragon, and a fighter. Odd companions, odd bedfellows for certain. Which one was first? This can be arbitrary. I can even get the dice out if we need to.
First one's the human. He's not fully descended at this point. He hasn't gone to be like, oh, I'm going to get a dragon as an ally.
What does he promise? Oh, wait. No, I have a list.
We had that, yeah.
Well, no, all I had for the fighter was like a rough description, but I had a little list of... Let me grab my stack of papers here. I had a little list of questions.
Yeah, we had some good ones.
Yeah, we were like, oh, that's easy. He gives this person immortality. He gives this one an infinite hoard of treasure.
We knew he wanted...
This one is town's worth of food.
We knew he wanted something, but we never quite settled what the...
We hand-waved, because we're like, that's so easy, and we didn't.
It is easy. I also have a list of questions that I wanted to make sure that we asked today.
I gotcha.
And
did we come up with any other lieutenants besides the dragon and the fighter?
No.
We had the barbarian.
Oh, yeah. We were like, oh, a barbarian would be fun. And that would be... What was your Grove Town name?
Oh, Bloodmane.
Yeah, Bloodmane Grove would definitely be the barbarian's locale.
Definitely the straightforward choice on that one.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember.
What would be good motivations for a dragon? What? It's a blue dragon?
Yeah, but let's start with the fighter here. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. So we're going to do the fighter here. What did he promise this person, or how has he threatened them into compliance? Those are the two options. So the fighter either has been promised something, or it was made so clear to the fighter that they would never be able to defeat Althander that they thought the only choice that they had remaining was to side with him.
I'm not... Here's the thing. I am very tempted by the idea of the fighter begrudgingly being on their side, but I'm worried about the eventuality of, like, the party wanting to make the fighter on their side and then having too high-powered of an ally. I that concerns me. But if we were to do it, I would say the fighter is like the Lord of High Shield, and in a bid to protect his people, has kept Pandemonium out of the bounds of there. And in return, he offers his services to the Liege Lord of Althander. And he's like, yeah, I'll defeat your enemies for you. Just keep my city safe. And you have a deal. I could totally see that. That's pretty sick.
Now, it is also important to remember that we need to keep these a little vague, because all of these characters will exist in 3 different challenge ratings.
Yeah.
Right? The nature of them will change depending on when the power party encounters them, because we wanted to make sure that we left the wide open paths that your do not promise outcomes leans into. So I think you're right. I think it is a rough instinct. So I think our fighter was promised something, and it is all they want. I'm tempted to say that our fighter is an aging duelist who is slowing down. Our fighter is 55 years old and is beginning to feel the edges of their slices get a little slow. Their riposts are a little less precise. And quickly, we're willing to sell the farm for eternal youth.
And that's fun, because that gives us the 3 different modicums of power. 1, they've made the deal, but they haven't been imbued with extra energy yet. 2, they've made the deal, and they're stronger because of it. And 3, they are essentially chaos imbued and are powerful. So that's why they're so strong. They can kick some major ass. That's
so. I'll say 2 things. I love that progression. I think that's super cool. The one thing I was thinking with Spencer's idea, and it would suck. It would suck so much for the party when they do eventually, if they do eventually kill him. The town gets overrun with chaos. The deal's done.
So if he was the king. If he was the king and he failed.
Yeah, and he was promised to keep the chaos out.
If it was the other gesture, yeah.
A little bit too much of a rug pullout for me. Fun for a book, not as fun for an adventure.
Fair.
To be like,
it
you
makes
won.
me feel bad.
You won. I'm going to kick you in the shin for winning. it quickly invites the players to be like, but wait, what did we do wrong? And it's like, well, no, it's just that's what was protecting the place. And they're like, in a quantum state? Like, it invites questions that we won't have answers to.
Sure.
Solid narrative choice, but doesn't work as well in this sort of more open, freewheeling situation.
Yeah.
So we're an aging fighter. Do we want to be like an aging knight, or do we want to go the like aging duelist angle? Are we an aging strength-based fighter, or are we an aging dex-based fighter?
I'm thinking Dex. That seems
agree.
like if they get to the ascended version of a Dex fighter, that's scary.
And we're going to be doing a barbarian as another lieutenant. So I think that having a dex-based fighter worked.
Aging pugilist seeks eternal youth. I like it. Simple, straightforward, to the point. Selfish, which is great.
Yeah,
have you
fuck
no
that
heart? No! Are you kidding me?
I do, and it has a murmur. I don't want to die.
Yeah, just a fighter who's like, what do you mean? He'll unlock the secrets to eternal youth, and then I don't know, I'll kill him or something. Whatever, it's fine.
I'll have forever to figure it out.
I will say our legally distinct plane of chaos could borrow from the property which may or may not exist, in which people do not age in Limbo. So it is a safe jump off there. Okay, so our fighter is an aging duelist seeking eternal youth. Our dragon, who is blue...
An aging dragon seeking eternal youth.
No, because we know that this dragon will be young, because the prescribed ages of dragons are part of the SRD. So we know that this dragon can only be a young dragon. I don't even think it can be an adult by CR math.
Yeah.
So this is the opposite. I'm tempted to say our blue dragon is maybe seeking vengeance against some powerful foe. Or is seeking a great treasure that they cannot get alone.
Blue dragons hoard magic items.
They
It
do.
looks like that's their typical hoard. So that's easy. Being like, there's this one thing that's impossible to get, but using chaos magic, he promises he can just create it. Like another version of it, or steal it from wherever it is.
That could make for an interesting ad sort of fight where he's using magic items.
Blue dragons also are unique because one of the things that they will hoard or collect is talent. They will make allies and companions among extremely talented people who they find amusing. So it is also entirely possible that this blue dragon is working with Althander simply because he finds him amusing.
That's true.
Well,
I think
because they need to be less dangerous, not amusing, captivating.
Yeah.
They find Althander's ascension interesting. Go ahead.
For the magic user, the magic item add-on, I think that's a good idea too. If he's been collecting, a bandit captain and a seafaring legionnaire or whatever, and that's who he's populated his domain with, it's interesting because they're going to have magic items from his hoard. So that's a nice way to be like, oh, these are the mobs that you're going to be fighting in this area, and here's your reward. When you go here, you're going to get some cool shit. That's fun.
Basically all of these people that just operate on the payroll of a blue dragon, right?
Exactly.
That's their patron, the person that pays for them to do what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Our legally distinct blue dragon, I will say, can have whatever preferences we want it to have.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But if we want to root it in the popular understanding, those are good options. Do you have a favorite between the two?
I think that having it be he's doing magic item hoarding and bringing in allies is fun. What would be the item that we want? Because this is the big get for a party.
It also needs to be completely unattainable. Because otherwise, the party's going to be like, can we give him this? Like, unless we want them to have that option.
To be like, just give him the actual item.
If we dangle a +3 sword in front of the party and say, or you can give it to the dragon, and he won't fight for you, but he'll leave.
He'll fuck off.
He'll be like, oh, all right, and then peace out because his interest in the area has been finished.
And then you have to convince the fighter in your party not to keep a +3 magic sword. Impossible.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always tempted to say it's like a sentient sword or like a powerful staff from an ancient throne or some stuff like that. Always gets me. the thought.
Yeah, it could be the sword of the fighter that or paladin that was in the original party of heroes that's
Interesting.
dead.
So changes the power dynamic a lot, though, because that means Althander has this sword and has promised it to the Blue Dragon if they assist. So this is not the Blue Dragon pursuing something that they need Althander to help them get. This is Althander saying, I'll give you the sword if you help me tear a hole into Limbo.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not even magically connected. It's just a backstory connection.
Okay,
That's
so
fine.
we'll just say magical weapon from AR's party. Great. Continuing to roll with the punches here. Do we like the barbarian idea, or is there any other path we want to go down?
I like the barbarian. We probably need more than just the 3 anyway, so
Sure.
let's do barbarian.
We'll only need one more in theory.
All right, cool.
For our sort of opening area. So we will need one low CR one of these. We're probably going to do like a hobgoblin or some shit. Or a bandit captain. Those are both solid low CR options. So our barbarian. Our barbarian is attached to a place called Bloodmane Grove. I'll make a note of that because we liked it, and so I don't feel the need to dissuade us from it. Our barbarian is attached to a location called Bloodmane Grove. What's in it for the barb? What are they? What's got them working for this fucking egghead sorcerer?
A never-ending fight.
Oh, a Valhalla type of deal? That's fun because it requires nothing extra from Althander. He's going to make that by summoning just an infinite plane of chaos into the world. That's fun.
Oh, hell yeah! The barbarian just wants to end the world!
Yeah, I want everybody to constantly be in fear, and I want to fight nonstop.
It's
Yay.
also, there is something very fun about the idea that, like, Althander's like, no, I will seize the power from that place, and it will be safe for the world. The fighter is like, I will have eternal youth and will get to live out my days with in the patronage of our great king of chaos. The dragon's like, I'll get my magic weapon and return to the horde. And the barbarian's like, the world will burn in fire! I like that the other 3 are like, so you don't think it's gonna... I love the conversation when the party's like, wait. You don't think his idea is going to work? And the barbarian's going to be like, of course not! He will rend the plains asunder! And they're like...
It'll be incredible!
It'll be amazing!
You're still in? And he's like, it's the only reason I am in! It's like, okay.
I love him going up to Althander and Althander being like, what do you want? And he's like, just keep doing what you're doing. Keep it up. I got your back.
I just love your vibe, man.
He could. The other problem is a fight with Althander.
I seek to end all
True.
things. Powerful
Okay,
stuff.
that's
Yeah, the
fun.
barbarian seeks and in turn seeks the apocalypse. The world will be consumed in rage and blood. Powerful. Okay.
And that, I think, going through that place, it's just a slugfest.
And so now we're down to our last person. So we've got our big bad at our final location, which it sounds like Spencer maybe has named. Originally we wanted it to be Bedlam, but this it's going to be difficult for, where is it? High Shield to be anything but the capital. Just based on name alone, you've sort of backed us into a corner. Another interesting high fantasy note. You can kind of end up, it's assumed that you're going to go from Donaldsbrook to like Orlathon to like High Shield. Like the names sort of guide you in a direction. So now we need our 4th and least impressive person. This is not a lieutenant. This is some person that is doing something for this group. They are trying to get a hold of, I don't know, a crown, a crystal, a gem, a person.
The first thought I had was like a pirate lord. They had to search the seas for something.
The One
It could be-
Piece!
It could
The
be
One
like
Piece is real!
where they're at could be like a dock system.
So, importantly, we need to base this person on what they are seeking, because those two things need to make sense. And this is where we start our adventure, so it's important that we start strong. What are they here for? I see this on a spectrum of relatively light to dark, so we are about to set a lot of tone. If they're here for a magic crystal in a abandoned temple, that is the lightest go kill rats fantasy there is. As we shift this way, we get like, take the stone that keeps the grove in town alive. That's a little darker. Then we turn to kill this person, they're in our way. We're getting pretty like, oh wow, like this, okay. And then we go full down, and my thought there would be, there is a child that is a wild magic sorcerer in town. Bring them to me. That puts us fully on the like, what?
Kind of like that, though.
So mainly, A, it sets tone, and B, it determines a thing, right? So we need if it's the kid's parents need to be alive because the party needs to be able to leave that kid. We can't have a kid for the next 6 arcs. We need to leave child behind. But it also puts us in a scenario where the players will spend the rest of the adventure looking for the thing again. So if it's a crystal, the players are going to spend the rest of the campaign looking for other things like that. If it's a wild magic sorceress child, they're going to be worried about that in every location they go to. So A, where do we want to be on tone? B, what item appeals to us most? We'll sort of have to work those two angles together.
First one, this is a pretty serious campaign. We're talking about bringing in the Plane of Chaos onto the Prime Material Plane with a fallen hero and a bunch of...
That murdered his own teammates.
Yeah, that ended up killing his own teammates. This is already a dark story, so I think opening with pretty dark is the right move.
So either somebody's got to die, they need a kid, or the item has to be keeping the town alive.
I think the kid. I think the kid. Because the idea of him either wanting to off other wild magic sorcerers who are getting stronger in this scenario, it also hints at wild magic being an important point in the campaign early on. Kids are always a big thing to draw people in. No violence needs to be done to the kid. Like, that's not the point. The kid is getting grabbed, not killed. But the implication can be you don't know what it's for.
I think you'd be consuming the magical power.
Potentially. It's just a red flag for some players to be like, oh, I don't like violence against children.
Yeah,
it's like, all right.
I think that the spectrum for me, depending on how dark we want the adventure to get, would base itself in this. I think that the most likely outcome, because the party's goal is to stop them anyways, is that if this kid gets grabbed and the party fails, they will end up in a fugue state a la the kids in the Golden Compass when they get cut off from their demons, and they're left like with no personality.
Sure.
Right? So in the final scene, this kid is not bled into a giant urn. Their power will be taken from them, and the result is that they will be left just sort of like
a husk.
And then when you break the gem of Guthron, the souls are released and the people all go back to normal or whatever. So how are we feeling about that?
Love it.
That sounds good to me. I vote kid. I vote he gets husked. If you don't succeed,
I don't think it's really
going
to matter. I think we're going to use this plot device to set the stakes, and then it's not going to come back up until the end. And in the end, it will come up with a series of adult sorcerers who have been either killed or in some way had harm inflicted upon them. We just need to gesture towards the fact that now that the powerful people are wrangled, Althander is still looking for more.
Yeah.
Okay. So who do you send to grab magically empowered teens? Right, this kid can't be 5 or this adventure is not going to make a lot of sense. So we need to hit that like 12 to 16 bracket.
Yeah. I mean, you've got bandits, you've got pirates, you've got assassin rogue. Those are the types that would go and do something like this. Scurvy dogs, if you will.
Okay, pirates means water. Water combat means rules.
which
For 5e.
it's not gonna.
Assassins means stealth checks and perception checks. It means a lot of dead ends, but it can be very fun. It's just not going to be very straightforward. Bandits are incredibly straightforward. There's no tact, there's no nuance. They run in, they grab the kid, they run out, they have a fort, you go to the fort, you kill the bandit. Assassins, somebody vanishes in the middle of the night, and then you're looking for safe houses and connections. So do we want to open with a very straightforward adventure, or do we want to open with something complex?
Open straightforward and get complex as you go. We don't want the first things to be confusing.
Okay, so we're on that bandit train. So this bandit guy's probably just getting, like, what, gold? This is probably somebody who's not bought into the whole thing. They've just gotten, like, what, like 1,000 gold to grab.
Yeah, they don't even know why they're doing it. They've probably been doing it for a while. They're the ones that have gathered up other sorcerers for the last year, 2 years, whatever. And they're just getting paid out for it.
So let's name our bandit.
This man's rich right now, but...
Yeah, for sure. A couple thousand gold. And that's the joke. That's a lot of fun, right? He rolls up with, like, a big gold necklace and, like, one gold tooth and a very fancy, like, Kentucky Derby hat. Like,
yeah, just decked out.
So what is the name of this bandit company? And what is the name of the captain of this bandit crew?
I'm thinking like something like Black Castle mercenaries. They've got a fort. It's painted black. That's how you know where their asses are at.
Do you think that they've changed the name since getting super rich now, or
Gold Castle? They're in the midst of painting Black Castle gold.
No, but I do like. Yeah, I like the concept though, like Gold Castle, Black Castle. I like the idea that there is like, I don't know, like Gilded Folly or something is like the name of this fort that is out in the woods or something like that. Could be kind of fun. I like the idea that they may have rebranded. Black Castle's fun because it's ominous, right? It leans towards something. I think we need to not have this much radio silence. So what are some other ideas we can kick around?
Gilded is fun, like the Gilded Crest. Is
it the Gilded, the very on the nose, is either the Gilded Blade or the Gilded Bow or the Gilded Arrow, sort of sets the violent standard.
The Gold Coin Brigade.
I think we can call them the Gilded Brigade. I think that would work.
Brigade.
And also, I think we should set that the bandit captain doesn't know who hires him. It's like a dead drop. He doesn't know that it's, the Lord of the Land.
He knows good money.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that Althander is probably still trying to project a sense of heroism to the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because otherwise, because we need good-ass reasons for Schmordenkainen to not have just rolled up and been like, finger of death, all right, cool, I'm headed home. Like, we need to know why that's not happening. It's like,
and it would be, Althander's like, oh, I've got it covered, I'll handle it, I'm looking, I'm hunting them down, I'm sending my best men after it.
Yeah, he's a big time hero. He's pretty big right now.
He's dextering Mordenkainen right now.
Yeah, powerful stuff. So the Gilded Brigade and the captain of the Gilded Brigade, Bart Simmons.
Bart Sampson.
Bart Sampson, my favorite cartoon character. No, I don't know. What's the angle? I think
Bartholomew is fine for a name.
It was just the first thing that came into my head. That we do not need to keep it at all.
No, I like Bartholomew. I like it.
Feckle.
Did you say Beckel?
The Feckle.
Theckle. Ooh. Bartholomew Theckle kind of hits, though. I'm not going to lie.
Bartholomew Theckle. And I want to give this character a silly thing that is true about them. They're called the Gilded Brigade. His name is Bartholomew Theckle. I think Bartholomew is 23rd in line for the throne.
Yeah.
I think Bartholomew has made it his entire personality that he is a distant cousin to the king regent of this area.
Perfect.
It's like being the poorest Kennedy. Where it's
So
like
richest than the poorest me.
where it's like, yeah, in theory, but it's a little vague maybe. All right. So I don't think we need to introduce Althander as a force in part 1. So I think we can save that for later. So here is our criminal syndicate. Althander Rylus, the Sunburst, and his 3 lieutenants, a fighter who has been promised eternal youth, a dragon that has been promised a magical weapon, and a barbarian who seeks to burn the world. And we are introduced to this nefarious plan because our bandit, Bartholomew Theckel, the leader of the Gilded Brigade, has been receiving massive payments from one of those 3. Or they've been receiving payments, and as the players loot, the Gilded Mansion, they discover letter after letter after letter from all 3 lieutenants. They're pulling from the same labor pool, and so that's sort of how the party ends up choosing which direction to go.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, we said we're not going to do it this way, but the easiest option is the fighter. Because he is lording over a town. It would make sense for him to send it out. It would make sense for them to go there next. They deal with his ass. They hear rumors about a dragon nearby that supposedly has magical weapons. But yeah, he's getting letters from all of them.
So I think an important thing for us to decide, and this leaves behind the fiction and enters sort of style of adventure here. Are we saying you've discovered notes from all 3 people, or are we saying DM, put the notes in that you want to be the next location? Those are two very different things. One is out of context text, the other is in world.
I think when we first started this off, we wanted it to be I'll call it choose your own adventure, but you get to choose where you go next.
Yeah, free march.
Well, what matters the most is we have 3 distinct locations, and you need to handle all 3 locations before you can deal with Althander. And you can do them in whatever order you please, and the other 2 will progress as you deal with the one that you are attending. Now, my question, that is the sort of choose your own angle adventure, but my question is that in or out of text, right? So do we discover that the brigade has been hired by all 3 of these people, or do we discover that the brigade is hired by somebody who works for all 3 of these people, or is it out of context and it's DM, pick which one the players are most excited by? Like,
out of context, DM decide who they're getting this from. The letter will be the same, the signature at the bottom will be different. That's easy. If you know your players want to deal with dragons, you go and do the dragon.
I just can't think of a smooth way for it to be in fiction, right? It doesn't make sense for all 3 of those people to be hiring this dude. Like, that doesn't make sense narratively.
I would be fine just saying for the introductory that it is one person. We would be going back on our initial idea of divergent paths. But it would make the most sense for it to be the fighter. As unfortunate as it is, that makes the most sense, easily. What do you guys think?
I think I think that this is not a very interesting thing to try to figure out on stream.
True.
The only thing I was gonna say is I think it could be all 3. The Blue Dragon could think that they're interesting in a sense. They're a decent sized group of bandits, and it's talent that he wants. It could be the Barbarian because he loves chaos, he loves the fighting, and bandits fight. It could be the Lord because he spends his reasoning.
All right, we'll leave that for later.
Okay.
But one of those.
So that is our central concept here. I like it. We've got a name, we've got a face. We know that Althander sort of like shifts, like their facial features kind of change now that they've started to really unravel. And these other 3 characters, I think, all progress in a very logical way. I think that depending on when you meet him, the fighter has been emboldened and youngened by the magical gifts. I think the barbarian has begun to become empowered. It is much to the players and the victims' horror that they discover that the barbarian is growing stronger as this apocalypse approaches. Like, it's not in his head. Like, this person is empowered by it. And the dragon, I think, is the most erect. I think they've probably just have gathered more stuff. I like the idea that the dragon is less the big winged scary lightning breath fight and more like fighting an artificer, right? You are more so dealing with this menagerie of odd items that this being has collected than you are fighting it on a sort of one-to-one mono level. It can be fun even just as a note of like, just make the dragon a spellcaster and give it abilities and just say like, no matter what, just describe a trinket that it like holds up a little orb in its taloned fingers or something. Okay, so that's all fair game. We've got 12 minutes on the clock. What was the other thing
that we needed to do today?
I said work out the syndicate and the villain and then something else, and I just can't for the life of me remember what it was.
Mike, do you have any idea?
Okay, then what are we interested in talking about? We don't have very long.
The town, the introductory town. Which one do we want it to be? What's the name?
Yeah, so the only names that we have sort of taken at this point is Bloodmane's Grove. And we're sort of leaning towards High Shield as at least being later in the adventure. Maybe not the last location, but it seems to be we've been leaning that way. That leaves us with Kelleran, Crimstein, Willowbrook, Orlacath, Lancer's Point, Knightsbrook, Ember's Way, Crystalwood. Those are our options.
Willowbrook sounds like an introductory town.
Sure.
Okay, so we start with the small, humble town of Willowbrook, over by the river.
Who's been showing talents in the magical arts, but he has no control over it. Suddenly, he's been abducted in the night. Where is he? Find him, please. I'll pay you 10 gold. Easy.
So, we need to flesh out this location. We have 10 minutes to do it. I have two very important questions about Willowbrook. One, what's the willow? Two, what's the brook? Because they named it for a reason.
Yeah, Willowbrook. Historically, it was founded when a group of travelers were looking for a nice location to settle down. A willow was breaking through the tree line where they were. They hadn't been able to find any water anywhere nearby them. They were running low. Seeing the willow breaking through the tree line, they rushed for it, and they found that it had been being watered by this brook. So they recuperated, got their strength up, and they said, you know what? This is where we're going to settle the town. So Willowbrook was the initial discovery. A willow over a brook, and they set up the town right next to it.
The brook is also now just no water.
Oh, the brook is emptied? That's pretty funny. I do think it's funny to have a no longer functioning brook at Willowbrook.
Is that sad or funny? Did the brook get dammed up for something, or did the brook peter out with time? It's funny if the brook petered out with time and now they just go off of the river that's, blah 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 distance away. Or wells. They probably just dug wells at this point.
Yeah. But it is kind of sad if it's Willowbrook was dammed up to feed Lancer's Point. Lancer's Point now has all the water stopped.
It could also just lean towards Althander's whole shit, right? Willowbrook had this like famous river, but it dried up about 2 years ago. Some big land project or something. Some thingamajig.
That's fun. Yeah, tying it into the magic is good.
Hamlet or village? Hamlet means 50
Hamlet.
people. Village means couple hundred.
First adventure, Hamlet. We're going to end up doing villages and towns and cities after this.
Okay. If this small hamlet had a magical child, that was a really, really, really big deal. If that happens in a village, other things interesting have happened in the village. If that happens in a hamlet, it might be the first interesting thing that's ever happened there.
Since it was discovered, yes.
Yeah, basically.
Okay, so the small hamlet has a magical child. The people of the town think that this is their way. This is how they're going to get on the map, right? A sorcerer has been born. This is a big deal. This person has spells. They are already doing things at the age of
12. And that makes it easy to be like, the bandits did it because they wanted magical muscle. They abducted this child to make him part of their group. That's not the reason why, but that's what the townspeople assume.
So we can go two angles with this. One is this town has had its life improved by a low-level sorcerer. And option two is a bunch of wooden signs that say, "Come see Morenius the Magnificent, sorcerer of Willowbrook." Those are the two options. Either prestidigitation has turned life in this town around, and everybody's porch is clean, and everything is perfect, and the candles all get lit every night, and those problems are all those little problems that a cantrip can solve are solved. Or B, come see Morelion the Magnificent, he'll clean your shoes for a gold piece.
Do they get any water magic?
Depends on the spells they pick.
Early on. It could be he's their source of water right now since the last 2 years.
Oh, yeah. I think, yes. Tied into all the small problems are gone, and he's been producing water.
So somebody who's not me, look up if Create Food and Water is a first level spell that a sorcerer gets. I think it's only clerics and druids, but check.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And paladins, maybe.
Okay.
Well, let's just see before we make any judgment.
Create Food and Water, 3rd level.
A 3rd level spell, so
and clerics and paladins.
Either this sorcerer boy is a level 6 sorcerer and therefore problematic, or no, or we have to change our concept.
Yeah, they mostly have fire stuff. They can like start fires and shit. No, he's not making water. He can shape water, but that's all he can do.
Gotcha.
Yeah, no, he is keeping the city running easier. People are happy to have it. If we were going to introduce him before being kidnapped, I would say the magical show of whimsy.
Yeah.
But because I think he's already been kidnapped, it won't land.
He has two... at first level, sorcerers have, I think, at least 2 or 3 cantrips, right?
Yeah, I think 3.
Yeah. Prestidigitation and mending would change everyone's lives.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Every problem is instantly fixed. Every mess is instantly cleaned.
And it makes sense why he wasn't able to fight back against these bandits. He's got utility spells to keep track of the town. He doesn't have combat spells. That's just not the shit he's doing.
I only see one real flaw here that we need to resolve, or at least try to look at in the next 5 minutes, and the same problem with every first level adventure. Why are the players here to save a 12-year-old boy or girl, a 12-year-old person, a 12-year-old Aarakocra? Can't be an Aarakocra. A 12-year-old legally distinct bird person. What on earth are they doing there? Like, that's a real question. Why would they ever
got them
be
on the
here?
path?
Like, that's senseless. That's really crazy. Like, now for a party comprised of responsible people, it's not a problem, right? We're a fighter, a rogue, a paladin, and a wizard, and we've all decided to make adventurers, and a boy is in trouble, we have to help them. No questions asked. But a lot of DMs do not have a party that plays good, so...
were they tasked to look into the drying up of the river? Or the brook?
Yeah, we can just say the party has been tasked to do this, but that leaves me with questions. By who?
Yeah.
Why do they care? How much are they getting paid? Who's paying them? Right? These are...
Oh, sure. That's just first thought. I'm up for other ideas, too.
A lot of beginning level adventures, unfortunately, would just say the party is passing through town when they hear about trouble, because they assume that the party is going to make adventurers who want to help. But that is not always true.
And all the other ones are, this is the quest. You've already accepted it as a group, and now you need to go figure it out.
Yeah, that's your Lost Mines. That's your... Yeah.
Which I'm partial to. I think that's a great open. It's like, you're already doing it. We don't need to introduce. We don't need to do anything. You're gone. All right, well, I'm back around. I think the young boy does have a magical show. His parents help him run it, and they've accumulated 50 gold pieces or 100 gold pieces, but he's been kidnapped, and they sent out an open call to adventurers. Anybody who can get this boy, their son, back to him, they'll give them the entirety of their coffers. But they need him back, their sweet, lovely boy. And you've picked up the call. You're going to go find that son of a bitch, and they're going to give you 100 gold pieces from their coffers.
Yeah, you've been hired.
You're already going.
Yeah, I like that. You arrive in town, and the well at the center of town, the stone looks fresh. It looks well taken care of. The buildings look nice. The glass looks well tended to. The town seems prosperous because this person, this 12-year-old, has taken it upon themselves to willingly do this, right? They both do a little magic show to generate gold and do, like, handyman tasks. Okay.
Perfect.
I like it. You've been hired. Solid start. I never have a problem with it. So with that, it's 7:58. I think that we can definitely start our wrap-ups, that we end on good time here. We have a dozen names of places that we can go. We have our entire key members of our evil syndicate figured out. We have the plot we came up with last time, and now we know that we open in the town of Willowbrook, where we will be fighting a bandit named Bartholomew Theckel, who has whisked away this young sorcerer or sorceress for some nefarious reason that the party will discover. Pretty strong.
That's perfect.
So I think next time we have a choice. We can either really get our teeth into Willowbrook, right? What does this adventure look like? Where does it take us? How does it connect us to the rest of the world? Or we can give all of the other locations this treatment. What are they doing? Why is it their character?
I like doing this treatment on all of them
Great.
to give us a sense of where we're going and plot hooks and stuff to drop in while we're fleshing out more fully everywhere else.
Sounds good to me.
Cool. Next time, homework, everybody come up with 5 character names.
Oh.
I don't want to sit and think about character names ever again. They're done.
5 character names. Can do.
That's it. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this week's session of DM Writer's Room. Next week, we won't be here. There's a honeymoon going on for one of us again. We'll never tell. So we're not going to be here for any of our streams next week. This week, we do have The Party Makes Things Worse Theros Edition stream. That's going to be Wednesday, right around 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time until roughly 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Come check it out. We are deep in it at this point. We got a few more levels left, but the party's trucking. If you want to watch our VODs from that or from this, you can check out our YouTube channel. They're all up on our live tab on there. Besides that, follow us on TikTok. We post memes and lore and helpful DM tips on there. We have a website, ttrpguy.com. That title's for everywhere, TTRP Guy. And we just started cross-posting on Instagram. So if you're not a TikTok person, follow us on Instagram.